Asa friends, welcome back to Hobby Vomit. It's me, Matt, and I am super excited today to be doing my first tier list. And for who, none other than the king himself, Stephen King. So I've read 24 Stephen King books now, and I thought this would be an appropriate time to do a tier list. Yeah, I've always wanted to do one, and for Stephen King specifically, and I feel like I've read 24 feels like a good enough number to do my first one. I'll probably check back in again when I've read maybe 24 more or something, another big chunk. I don't want to do it every 10 or something. So another big chunk, I'll probably do another one of these, but yeah, been looking forward to this, and I think we're going to get right into it. So basically, this is just going to be a pretty standard tier list, right? So I didn't name the tiers or anything super fancy schmancy, but maybe I will next time. So if you've never seen a tier list before, basically what I'm going to do is just rank all of the Stephen King books I've read from S, which is the best of the best, down to D, which is, we can go over the categories. So S is like God tier book. It's the best of the best. I'm going to try my best to only put a couple here because I'll just go ahead and say there's not going to be any Ds out of this list. So D, I would say, is like meh. Like, I didn't really enjoy reading it. C was good. Didn't blow me away, but it was good. B was very good. Really enjoyed it. A was like a, 5 star. I'll say A is like a kind of a 4.75 to a 5. Very, very good. And S is just the best of those 5 because I do have a lot of 5-star Stephen King books, but I only want to put a couple in like that S tier, the best of the best. Some other caveats. I was kind of conflicted of whether or not I would put all of the Dark Tower books on here or just do the Dark Tower as a whole. I think if I decided to put them all on here just so there was more books so I could hit that 24, But I think if Dark Tower were just a single entry, it would be in the S. I may still put one of the books there, but I'm going to reserve that for a single spot if I do. But I'm going to try and rank all the Dark Tower books because I do think there's some variance in quality. So yeah, these are in no particular order. Kind of just shuffled them up, and here we go. So the first book is Revival by Stephen King, which, by the way, sorry, I know I'm keep going into caveats, or tangents. I would say a couple of these books I've actually done reviews. Some of these books were from before I started the channel. Some of these I do have reviews for, so you can find those on the channel if you're interested in hearing more about it. But Revival was a 5 out of 5 for me. Overall, I absolutely loved it. I think it's some of King's best character work, and it was a scary story, and I think Stephen King absolutely nailed the ending. Like a lot of Stephen King books, it deals with addiction, but I think it deals with it in a really cool way, like a duality way, because there's like drug addiction, but there's also the addiction of being obsessed with something. So you gotta get both ends of it, and I think it's done really, really well. Ending is horrifying. It's one of those that people are like, yeah, you'll think about it, almost every night, and like I do. So Revival, right now, I'm feeling inclined to put it as an A. I want to put it as an S, honestly. I'm going to put it as an S. I'm going to rearrange these two kind of as we go, I think. And I think what I am going to do is try and rank them within their tiers as well. Maybe not at first. Maybe I'll do that at the end, but I'll try and do as much as I can as I go. All right, next is Drawing of the Three, the second Dice... I keep saying Dice Tower. Dark Tower book. I got board games on my mind. The second Dark Tower book. And this is really when the series hits its stride. You'll hear a lot of people say the first book, The Gunslinger, is tough to get through, and that a lot of people are like, just get to the second book, read the first part of the second book, and if you're not hooked, then maybe it's not for you. But like, at least get there because it's gonna hook you, because it does. It really it gets its claws in you, and it does not let go until the end of this book. I mean, it is non-stop, and you can let's just say you can tell that Stephen King was on cocaine when he wrote when he was writing this book, but in the best way. It's still coherent, right? It's not like I have no idea what's going on. It's just so good and hits the ground running, and you get to meet the quartet, and yeah, it's just so cool. It really opens up the Dark Tower into what it can be. And I feel like this is when Stephen King, it feels like I'm reading Stephen King with the Dark Tower. Gunslinger, not so much. So this is probably my second favorite Dark Tower book. So I'm going to throw it in the A. I think it's an A. It's a 5 out of 5 for me. Next is Mr. Mercedes. This is the first book in the Bill Hodges trilogy, which, by the way, I guess I should say, I'm going to try and keep this spoiler free. Just, you know. I think that's the right thing to do. So if you are interested in spoilers, you can check my reviews because I do spoiler-free and spoiler. I don't have a review for Mr. Mercedes or Drawing of the Three. There is one for Revival, and I'll try to keep reminding you of which ones that I do have reviews for. So yeah, Mr. Mercedes is the first of the Bill Hodges trilogy. This is Stephen King writing true crime, essentially, which I am not interested in the least. I am not a big crime person, which is funny. I feel like I find myself saying this on this channel often, which means I'm reading way more crime than I normally would. I think they just have kind of clustered up. But yeah, not a big true crime fan. But Stephen King has a way of writing that he could write about anything, and I don't care. And so, yeah, the premise of this book is there's a gruesome crime that happens in the beginning, and then you're following Bill Hodges, who's an ex-detective trying to solve this crime. And I really liked this book. I will say Bill is not my favorite character. I still think he's good, and you get to meet a surrounding cast, which is going to continue on through that Bill Hodges trilogy. But I think the crime aspects is good. The villain is excellent. And yeah, I really enjoy this. So I think this is I'm going to put this as a really good, a B. All right, next is The Outsider. The Outsider, I do have a review for it if you're interested. The Outsider continues on where the Bill Hodges trilogy leaves off. So we are with Holly Gibney, who is a character in the trilogy, and she's now kind of doing her own thing, and she is attempting to solve a very, very interesting crime. The crime, I won't say what the crime is, but it's a very interesting crime, and it hooks you from the beginning. Now, I know that some people have a problem with this book because there is like a turning point within this book that people don't agree with. Didn't bother me at all. I kind of think I knew just going in. And the other main characters, Holly's such an interesting character because she almost feels like she always splits time with somebody. So like she's splitting time with Bill Hodges in the Bill Hodges trilogy, and she's splitting her time with Ralph Anderson in The Outsider. And Ralph Anderson is a cop who is trying to solve this crime as well, and very, very connected to the crime. He's the one that makes the arrest in the beginning, and he is an incredible character that is just he's struggling with what is right and wrong, what's real, what's not, and trying to do the right thing, and also trying to realize that maybe he's made some mistakes. So really like Ralph, and I think Holly and Ralph together are a match made in heaven. I like Holly and Ralph more than I like Bill and Holly. So Outsider for me, I think all of these Bill Hodges trilogies are kind of all in the same area, but I did like Ralph Anderson more than Bill. And the thing that bothers people about this series, it didn't really bother me so much. You know, I'm reading Stephen King. I kind of feel like I know what I'm getting, and that doesn't bother me. Ending as well. You know, a lot of people talk about his anticlimactic endings. I don't necessarily feel that way. I think they're just real. You know, it's not everything has to be like a Michael Bay ending with explosions and twists, and it can just feel like a natural ending, and this one did feel like a natural ending, and I got closure, and it felt good. So I think top of B, bottom of A. I might move that for now. I'm going to leave it top of B. All right, Misery. Misery was one of the first Stephen King books I read. I wanted to get into one of his classics, but not too long of a book because I was just getting into reading. And Annie Wilkes, you know, you hear it said all the time, Annie Wilkes is one of the most terrifying villains of all time. And yeah, she is. She's terrifying. And she makes the book, you know. It's just so the story is an author an author who wants to break away from his series of like a romance series. He wants to break away and do his own thing now, but he also gets caught in a snowstorm. Gets rescued by, oh, I don't know if you heard that thunder, big thunderstorm outside. Perfect for Stephen King tier list, right? He gets caught in a snowstorm, and a super fan of his biggest fan, rescues him and is nursing him back to health. But she might have some ulterior motives as well. And things kind of go off the rails once he's there, trapped there. So the whole book almost takes place exclusively in Annie Wilkes' house. But yeah, some of the most scary scenes I've read. Very, very tense. It's not a perfect book, though, for me. There are some moments where you're reading Paul. I think his name's Paul Sheldon. I'm going to forget some of the names of these main characters, but I think his name's Paul. And he's writing one of these romance novels while he's there. And you get to read some chapters from that. And if you've heard me talk about it, these are some of my biggest problems with Stephen King's writing. If I had to choose a criticism, that would be it. Is I don't like reading Stephen King writing as somebody else. He does it very well. It feels like I'm reading Paul Sheldon's book, but I don't want to be reading Paul Sheldon's book. I want to be reading Stephen King because it's something about the way he writes and his conversational tone. It just makes it flow on the page. And when he's writing as someone else, you kind of lose that flow a little bit. So I think there are a couple chapters where you are reading Paul's novel, and some people might think that there's no point to that. I think there is a point to what you're reading. I just don't know if the juice was worth the squeeze there, but still a very, very good book. This is going to go right now the bottom of A. I think Drawing of the Three is a better book. All right, The Dark Tower, book 7 of the Dark Tower series. Dang, it's big thunder right now. Ooh. All right. So Dark Tower, final book. What can I say? This is such an interesting book for me because I think there are some very serious flaws in this book, but I also think the highs are so high, higher than any other book I've read, I think. And the ending, I think about it daily. It is a perfect ending. I just don't understand when people discredit the whole series because they didn't like the ending, which I don't, whatever. I'm not going to get to what other people think. I think it's a perfect ending. I really do, and I think about it every single day. It haunts me. It haunts me. And yeah, I'm not going to say anything more than that other than perfect ending. Some very, very serious highs. It's the conclusion. It's everything we've been waiting for, and I think we get that closure. I think he sticks the landing 100%. But there's also a couple chapters in here that I just felt like, I don't know, I didn't love them and they didn't feel needed. Now, the other criticism I hear a lot about The Dark Tower is that there's some not satisfying conclusion to some character arcs, to which I would say I disagree. I think maybe they aren't these bombastic conclusions, but I think when you think about what the purpose of the series is, that it makes sense the way things play out. That's not what, the important things that happen because they are the important things. So, it's a whole series that is dealing with addiction, and I think it just wraps up beautifully. But it is not a perfect book by any means. This is going to go bottom of A. I'm so conflicted. Those highs are so high, but I think it could have been cleaned up. So because of that, it is going to go bottom of A. Next is Elevation by Stephen King. This is a novella, and I just needed something to get me through to my next book, and had heard very, very differing opinions on this book, this novella. It's short, it's political, and I think two things happen. The politics nature of it, people who obviously don't agree with Stephen King's politics don't like it for that reason. And two, I guess it was pitched as to readers, Stephen King's new book. His new book is coming out, and then they got it, and it's like this tiny little novella. So I think people were kind of pissed about that, and they were selling it hardcover. It's like $25, and I get that. That's frustrating, but I was very pleasantly surprised by this. I wasn't expecting to fall in love with the characters. I mean, it's extremely emotional, and it's basically this guy who it's been a minute, but basically it's something about his weight. His physique is not changing. He's not changing physically, but every day he gets lighter and lighter and lighter. His weight is going down, and doctors don't know what's going on. He doesn't know what to do about that, and so it's kind of just like his journey through that. It's happening fairly rapidly, and it's just kind of dealing with that. But great character relationships. It's a little bit white knighty, and so that I did have a problem with. I mean, I didn't have a problem with it. It didn't need to be that though, and I could see why some people think it feels that way. But I still think he's a great main character, and yeah. I loved it. It made me cry by the end, which, if you can do that in a novella, I think that's pretty impressive. So this, again, I'm forcing myself. I think I put this at the bottom of B. Most of my books are going to be here, A and B. I think I'm going to try and limit my S's. I think there just won't be many C's. There's going to be 0 D's. I'm just telling you. So here we go. Bottom of B for elevation. Maybe the top of C. I'll leave it at the bottom B for now. I might rearrange things. Next is The Shining by Stephen King. The Shining was a very pleasant surprise for me. I had seen the movie. I knew the movie was different from the book, but I still was very excited to read the book. And it deals with an alcoholic father and just an abusive father and just husband and kind of a shit person. But man, if Jack isn't one of the most interesting characters I've read. And just the whole idea of The Shining is very cool. And yeah, it just gives off such wintry vibes, and it's scary. There's some scary moments. I went into this thinking like, well, I know this is going to be good, but this is actually this might be tied with Revival for my favorite book of Stephen King. I'm really conflicted here of which one I like more. I think recency bias is making me lean towards Revival. I just don't have anything bad to say about Revival. I couldn't believe how good it was. It's just masterclass character work. And so is The Shining. Oh, I don't know, actually. I would say the thing about Revival that I think I like less than The Shining is it is like a POV from, you're being told the story from the character. And I don't really love first-person storytelling that much. I think Stephen King pulled it off 100%. But I think maybe the storytelling in The Shining felt a little bit more natural. So I'm going to give the nod to The Shining, I think. But I think any other day you could swap them for me. All right, next is Salem's Lot. Salem's Lot, if I understand correctly, was Stephen King's second book. This was I think this might be the first book of Stephen King that I read after The Dark Tower. The Dark Tower is the first Stephen King books that I read. And so Salem's Lot was the first non-Dark Tower Stephen King book I read. And didn't really know what to expect. Knew it was a classic. Knew that it was very town-focused and that the town itself was supposed to be a kind of a main character there. And I would agree with that completely. It's a vampire story, which, I'm not super into vampires. I don't find them like very scary, but I was okay with being told the vampire story. But it was pretty good. I actually, I really like it. I like it very much. My biggest problem with Salem's Lot is the lack of maybe compelling characters. I didn't really like Ben or Susan that much. But we did get our intro to Callahan, and I think Callahan's a great character in this book. He's struggling with his faith. And that struggle with faith felt very real. And, that was heightened even more by some connections made in maybe some other books. But, yeah, I do think the star of this book is the town itself. It just feels like a living, breathing town. There would be full chapters where you're just bouncing from house to house with people you've never seen before, or maybe you've gotten little vignettes of them before and you're seeing them again. And I didn't mind that at all. Just felt like I was a fly on the wall of this town. And it was very good. But not a perfect book. I think I wish I liked the main characters more. There's a kid in the book, too. I can't remember the kid's name, but I really like the kid, though. He's like a brave kid who loves horror and kind of susses out what's going on and tries to convince, the whole this feels it felt realistic of some people figuring out there are vampires in their town and having to try and convince each other and the rest of the town, and that felt convincing. So this is, I think, this is a objectively better book than The Dark Tower. Not as good as Misery. Yeah, not as good as Misery. So I'm gonna slot it right there as an A. I really like this book. I think if I liked Ben and Susan more, it would have been even higher. All right, next is Song of Susanna, the 6th book in the Dark Tower series. This book gets a lot of flack, and when I read the Dark Tower this time, back in college, I had read all the way through like the first 100 pages of the final book, and I just put it down. I wasn't not enjoying it. I was loving it. I just put it down and never picked it back up. And then a few years later, I was like, let me just try and finish this, because I just fell out of reading is what happened. I just didn't read books again from college till now, till a year ago. So 10 years, I just didn't read. But my brother is a big Stephen King fan who got me into Stephen King. He's the one that pushed me to do The Dark Tower because he knew I'd like it. But I put it down, tried to pick up the 7th book later, put it down, and then so this was really my second journey to the tower, though I didn't finish it the first time. So my first finish, but my second time reading books 1 through 6. Now 6, the first time I read Song of Susanna, I didn't love it. It is a little slower. It is a lot of lore drops, and there's a very controversial thing that happens in book 6. Now I will say, even the first time I read it, I love the thing that happens that's controversial. I think it's handled extremely well. I think it doesn't feel like it's for bad intentions. I'm trying to avoid spoilers here because it is a major spoiler. But man, I really love it. I think it's just handled so well, and it's fun. And getting to see what the Quartet are up to in this book, I think, is really good. Some people argue it's just a prequel to book 7. I would agree. I almost think that 6 and 7 could have been combined, and you took out the fluff of 7, and it would have made kind of almost a masterpiece if you tightened up both books and took out the fluff. Yeah, I think it would. I think it could have been really cool. But as it's on its own, I still really liked it. I remember Bree and I read it, and we finished, and I was like, you know what? That was not as bad as people say. But with that being said, it is my least favorite Dark Tower book. So, it is what it is. I think I still put this at the top of C. It's good. It is good. There's some really high highs, but oh man, I'll put it at the top of C, just so we have a C. I think this could be a B though. All right, next is Cujo. Cujo was one of those books I was like, I know the story. I know what it's about. It's about a killer dog, and killer dog goes and kills people, and yeah. That's all I knew. I hadn't seen the movie. I just kind of knew what I was getting into. It's a shorter book, and I was like, let me read a short book here. This was probably my biggest surprise out of any Stephen King book. I think it's one of his most underrated books. People say it's boring, and like if you go in with the right expectations, I don't think it is. It's a family drama at its heart. It is about family, relationships, turmoil in a marriage, and in multiple marriages. It's not just focusing on one marriage. And there's moments where you're just dealing with like the father and he's going away to work on his job. But even that's interesting, I think. It doesn't necessarily contribute to the story. But, if you're used to Stephen King meanders, but I think his meandering is positive. It doesn't bother me. They're good tangents. So Cujo, I couldn't believe how much I liked it. It was a very weird format. There's no chapters or anything. It's just page 1 to the last page. No chapters, no parts. It's just a continuous story. I really liked it. I think the end is pretty traumatizing. It's so much more than just a dog killing people. It's so much more than that. And you need to go in with those expectations. If you just want a dog like tearing people up, you're going to be disappointed. But I loved this book. I couldn't believe how much I loved this book. This is going to go at the top of I think I like it more than Salem's Lot, which is pretty wild to me. I just didn't think that I would. I'm putting it there. I think it's one of his most underrated. It is the most underrated of the ones I've read, for sure. So, yeah, Cujo. Next is Holly. Holly is the newest installment in the Holly Gibney series. So she was in all three of the Bill Hodges trilogy. Then she was in Holly. Then she was in the novella If It Bleeds. And then finally she was in Holly. And upcoming, she is in Never Flinch. Now, this was Holly's first... actually, sorry, let me make sure. None of these other books have reviews on the channel, but this book does have a review on the channel. So if you're interested to hear more of my thoughts. Holly, it's kind of back to basics. It's just there's a crime, and Holly is trying to solve that crime. But Holly is the true star of this book. This is the first time that Holly is the main character, like the full main character. She's not sharing main character duties with anyone else, really. And I think the book is a little bit worse for that. I don't know if Holly has that, I don't want to call it star power, but she's just such a good supporting character that it felt a little bit weaker. This book could have been a novella, I think. Has really, really compelling villains. I love the villains in this book. The crime itself is very interesting. There are some side tangent stories with Barbara and Jerome that are good. The other problem I had is it's not necessarily a problem, just I didn't love it. It was centered during COVID times, and so you get to see Holly and all her quirks dealing with COVID, which is fine, but like Stephen King, he lets you know, which, to be fair, when we were living in COVID times, it felt like that. I mean, everything media was just pushing on you that it's just COVID and masks and all that. And so it did feel suffocating. In this book, it feels a little suffocating. So I don't have a problem with it. I just don't want to, I lived it. I don't want to read it. You know what I mean? But it's still a good book. But very easily my least favorite Holly book. And I think my least favorite Stephen King book that I've read. So this is going to go, still not bad. Very glad I read it. I think I still gave it a 3.5 or something like that out of 5. So still really good, right? His character works great. Holly is a great character. I really like Holly. And yeah, again, villains were really good. Really love the villains. And Barbara's storyline is excellent. So yeah, bottom of C for now. Still good though. Next is Carrie. I do have a review of this on the channel if you're interested. Carrie is Stephen King's first published book. And I just very recently read this. I think this is actually my most recent read King. And when I read it, it was one of those like, oh, I'll just read, I'm going to have to read it at some point. Let me just read Carrie. It's his first book. It probably will be okay. And then I'll move on. I knew about the major scene in the book. I've never seen the movies, but it's a pop culture thing, right? Like everyone knows it. I won't say it just in case somehow you've managed to avoid it this whole time. But there's a very iconic scene in this book, and that's all I knew about the book. And I fell in love with this book. I couldn't believe how much I liked this book. Very interesting storytelling. There's a term for it. I don't know what it is, but it's where he puts in like newspaper articles and snippets of textbooks and stuff, which you heard me say earlier. That's my least favorite type of Stephen King writing, except for in this one, it works so well. And it almost feels like when you're watching like a reenactment documentary, and it's like there's someone that comes on the screen and they tell you something, and then you watch the recreation of the scene. And it kind of does that. It sets us up a little bit and tells us some aftermath stuff and maybe prequel stuff that Stephen King then doesn't give us in story form, but it just works so well that it didn't bother me. And they weren't very long, right? They're only like a paragraph at a time. But the character work in this book is insanely good. He writes a teenage girl or teenage girls or just teenagers so well. It's crazy, And I think a lot of the teenage girl he credits to his wife Tabitha, which, thank God for Tabitha, because King was going to throw this out and she was just like, no, this is good. And so we wouldn't have Stephen King without Tabitha. So thank you, Tabitha. But yeah, really like this book. It's a tragedy. It's a very tragic book. Sue's storyline in this book is very, very good. And Carrie's mother is terrifying. And Carrie, it's it's just tragic. It's a tragic book, but I really love this book. I couldn't believe how much I like this book. So this is an A for sure. I think I like this more than Salem's Lot. Did I like it more than Salem's Lot? Oh, I definitely like Cujo more. I think I'm going to put it right here. I think maybe... No, you know what? I liked it more than Salem's Lot. I'm a character-driven reader, and like, honestly, as good as Salem's Lot is, the characters are where it's lacking. So I think Carrie takes that spot. All right. Next is If It Bleeds. If It Bleeds is 4 different novellas, so this is kind of hard to, I guess, put on here, but there's another short story collection I've got on here as well. Actually, 2 more. So we're just going to have to slot them as a whole, and that means we're judging them for their strengths and their weaknesses. So If It Bleeds is 4 novellas. There's Mr. Harrigan's Phone, which is about a boy kind of befriending an older man and their relationship. And there's kind of like a ghost story element to it. It was good. Not my favorite. Probably my least favorite of the 4. Next was The Life of Chuck, which just deals with... it's an introspective story about what's inside all of us. And it's a very beautiful story. I really liked The Life of Chuck. Then there was If It Bleeds, which is the novella starring Holly, and this takes place after The Outsider. Really liked this a lot more than I thought I would. I think the villain in this one is maybe the scariest villain of Holly's career yet. Really liked him. And then the final one was Rat, which is about an author struggling to write his first novel, and it's excellent. More of like a horror story, I would say, psychological horror story. That was my favorite of the 4, but I think Mr. Harrigan's Phone was my least favorite, maybe like a 3, and then the rest were 4s and up. So I really liked this collection of novellas quite a bit. I think this might be top of B for me. Rat just, I think, carries it to above The Outsider. All right, we got 2 Dark Towers back to back. Our first Dark Tower is Wizard and Glass. This is part 4 of the Dark Tower series. This is a very polarizing book, and I get why. So on my first read, like I said, I'd read books 1 through 6 before, and then on that first journey, this book kind of slowed my roll. It's a it's a huge tangent. It's a backstory book. So it's a freaking chonker too. It's like 1,000 pages. You get almost no progress in the story. It's just about Roland's past. And as much as I enjoyed it then, it did feel like I was like, wait, this, you start and you're like, oh, you're going to get a Roland backstory. Cool. And then you're like 700 pages in. You're like, wait a minute, this whole book is just going to be his backstory, isn't it? And then you close the book and you're like, what? I didn't get any progress. Like, come on. And I know that when it first came out, there was like a, X year gap in between getting book 5. And so that really pissed people off. Or actually, you know what? I think it's the opposite. I think there was a big gap between 3 and 4. And 3 ends on a major cliffhanger. And then 4 comes out. I think we got the resolution of that and then no progress. And so I get why people were upset about that. But as a book, on this second time through, I truly think this book is a masterpiece. I think this is the best book of the Dark Tower. It's a 6 out of 5 for me. It's a beautiful tale. It's kind of almost like epic fantasy. And it is a whole backstory with a whole new set of characters, but it's so good. It will move you to tears. It's tense. It'll make you laugh. There's moments where I'm like, do I like some of these characters more than the quartet? Do I? And I think sometimes I do. So it's and you get to see Roland's past and why Roland is the way Roland is, and it's so important to his character and the rest of the story that it's necessary, I think. And that's why I'll never, I won't ever fight anybody if they've only read it once and they're like, I don't get the hype. I don't get it. It just felt slow. It's very, very, very slow. Very slow. But in a beautiful way. It doesn't bother me at all if it's slow. It still felt like it was page-turning to me. I was so sucked in and living. It's so immersive. You feel like you're living in that world. And yeah, I have no problems with this book. I think it's a perfect book. This This is going to be the bottom of the S tier, though, if only because I think there's like in the very beginning when you're getting that resolution of 3, and at the very end, I think you start to move on. I could deal without those, not deal without them. They're important, but when I'm evaluating the book as a whole, it's the big chunker backstory is what makes this perfect. So not quite as tight as Revival or The Shining, I think. I'm going to put it in the middle. I think I like it a little bit more than Revival. I think if I were to, like right now, if you're like, you got to reread one of these books, I'd reread Wizard and Glass before Revival, I think. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. All right, next is The Gunslinger. This is the first book of the Dark Tower. So this book I've actually read a couple times, more than the 2, because I had done my journey, the first 6 books. Then I was like, you know what? I'm starting the series again. I'm committed. I'm starting to get into reading. I'm going to finish this series before anything else. So I picked up The Gunslinger, and I read the first time I read it. I read the new version of it that he had edited. Then the second time I just picked it up from a half price books, and it was the original edition. After I finished it, I read book 2, and then I was like, you know what? I think I want to get Bree into the Dark Tower. So then we went back and read book 1 through 7. So actually, books 1 and 2 I've read 3 times each now. The Gunslinger is a really interesting one. I really struggled the first time, and it was one of those things that people say. It's a hard read. It's very confusing. It kind of feels just like a fever dream. It's more like purpley prose. It doesn't feel like... My brother pitched it to me when we talked about it as more of like, it feels like Stephen King trying to write Tolkien. And I think I would agree with that. This whole series is very inspired by Lord of the Rings. He wanted to write his own Lord of the Rings. And the tone of this just doesn't read like a Stephen King. And that's my biggest gripe with it. I want to read that conversational tone that's just so easy. I can just flip a page. I'm not getting stuck up on anything. For The Gunslinger, it does require like a lot more intentional reading. So the first time I read it, didn't love it. But my brother was like, just get through it, read book 2, and then I was hooked. Drawing of the 3. Second time I read it, which was the original version, I was surprised at how much I liked it. I still had those problems, but I still liked it a lot more. And then the third time I liked it even more. So it's grown on me. I haven't read it since finishing the series, but I think getting the conclusion and everything, I think maybe I'd like it even more on a 4th go around. But it is still my second least favorite. So it's going to go above Song of Susanna down here in the Seas. Not as bad as I think originally it'd be here, but after a couple rereads, it's up here. All right. You Like It Darker. I got to have to speed up a little bit. You Like It Darker is the newest short story collection by Stephen King. This is really kind of a special book to me just because this was the first book of Stephen King's I got to buy on release day. And, I have it on here twice, actually. I'm realizing now. So, you know what? No, I'm not going to put it there because it might confuse people. We'll just not rate this one. But, yeah, that was special to me. I think from now on, he's become one of my favorite authors, if not my favorite author. I want to buy every book he releases on release, just so I have that before he, he's an old man, so we might not have that many more books from him. So I want to have a couple. And so I bought this, sight unseen. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew it was a short story collection. And, man, are there some absolute freaking bangers in here. 5 out of 5's like, there's some really good stories. Two Talented Bastards is really good. It kind of talks about just what talent is. Is it luck or is it skill? Why can't everyone have it? And it's really, really good. I really loved that. And then really there's short stories in here, and there's a couple novellas. And the novellas are the standouts. The Answer Man, Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream, is about like a guy that has a dream of where a body's buried, and so he reports it to the police anonymously. But then the police are like, "Yeah, we think you did it, dude." And he's just like, I didn't. And then dealing with that, the whole rest of the whole story is about him dealing with the police and them not believing him. It's really excellent. And then my favorite of the book was Rattlesnakes, which is the spiritual successor to Cujo, and it's just a ghost story. and damn, it's scary. There's some genuinely frightening moments in that story, but great story. So yeah, this was a really pleasant surprise. I like this more than If It Bleeds for sure. I think I'm gonna, but the problem is the short stories are fine. There's like a grandpa one that's fine. The red screen is like borderline bad. That might be the worst thing I've ever read of Stephen King, is that one short story. I'm going to put it at the top of B. Really good. It's worth picking up. I think this is my favorite short story. You know, I'm putting it at the bottom of A. This is my favorite short story collection that I've read of his, so I think it belongs at the bottom of A. All right. Next is Finders Keepers, the second book of the Bill Hodges trilogy. My favorite of the Bill Hodges trilogy. And yeah, it's just so good. It's such an interesting thing. Like, you don't even meet the previous characters or Bill. You don't even see Bill or any of them for like the first half of the book, but like I didn't care because the new characters and the story that's up is so damn good that I didn't care. But then when he does loop it all in together, it's excellent. This is my favorite crime novel of his for sure. This is also going to be I think this is going to go right here. You know, I think it deserves to go higher, honestly. I think I'm going to put it here. I might bump up The Dark Tower. This feels wrong. There are problems with it, but man, it's just that ending. It's so good that, you know, I think it's tough to write an ending that ties together a whole series perfectly. And it's not even like, yeah, that was really good. It is perfect. It could not be any other way. It just couldn't. It's just perfect. Yeah. I'm going to do this. We might revisit this, but this is where we're at here. All right, Wolves of the Kala. This is the fifth Dark Tower book. So I actually had the opposite experience with this. The first time I read the Wolves of the Kala, I really, really loved it. And on this second read through, I didn't love it as much. I think it's in the bottom half of the Dark Tower for me. It's very slow. It's like a true Western, to where it's just like, there's a town, bad things are happening in the town, then the heroes come to help out the town. And that's the whole book. And that's okay, but it is very slow. It also introduces some really interesting elements to the Dark Tower, which I love. It's not a bad book by any means. I really enjoy it. It's just, if I had to rank them, it would be kind of bottom tier. So I think this is the top. I like it more than Mr. Mercedes. Do I like it more than the... Yeah, I think this is like top of B. It's still a great book. Yeah. Okay. Next is Pet Sematary. Another classic. Very thankful I got to read this book along with some friends. We did our first and only like big book club. I think there was 4 or 5 of us, and we got to all read this and then discuss it, and it was really fun. Really enjoyed that. And I love this book. I mean, again, I think a lot of people, when they hear horror, I don't know what they're expecting, but I think a lot of people expect to like be so scared they can't sleep and they're shaking reading the book and turn the page and it's a jump scare or something. I don't know, because a lot of people are like, this book's not scary. It's like, yeah, in that sense it's not. You're not going to turn the page and like jump scare because it's a book. But like, it is frightening. The themes and what happens in this book are horrific. And yeah, so it is a horror book and it is scary, but it's really a family drama, and that's what makes it so scary, is because you feel for these characters and you fear for their lives and what's going to happen. And I think that's where that's what makes great horror. When you think about like The Exorcist or something like that, if you take out the family drama aspect of it, the mom and the mother and daughter relationship, then that movie falls apart. That's why you're so scared. You're scared for Reagan and her mother and their relationship, what's going to happen. There's got to be stakes. There can't just be jump scares and stuff. And there are very, very serious stakes in this book. Judd is a great character. This has a wild, wild ending. Yeah, it's really, really, really good. I think this is an S tier. I'm going to break my rule and let there be 4. I think I do weirdly like Revival more than Pet Sematary. I know that it will get me some flack, but I think Revival's so underrated. I'm not sure why, but very, very good. Pet Sematary is excellent, though. There's one chapter I think is completely unnecessary and drags for way too long. But other than that, I think it's a pretty damn near perfect book. So we're going to put that to the S tier, bottom of S. Next is End of Watch. This is the third in the Bill Hodges trilogy. My least favorite of the Bill Hodges trilogy. I think most people's least favorite of the Bill Hodges trilogy. This deviates from the way that the first two books went. There's something that Stephen King does in this book that people don't like. It doesn't bother me. Again, it's like kind of like The Outsider. It didn't really bother me. I just didn't think this book as a whole was as good as the other ones. It was fine. I'm glad I read it. I'm glad I'll never read this book again. So this is going to be probably here above. I still think it's better than Holly. Do I think it's better than Holly? Yeah. I think if Holly was a bit shorter, maybe a novella, it'd be better than End of Watch. But as it is, End of Watch is a little bit better. All right, The Wastelands, the final Dark Tower book I need to rank. This is the third book of the Dark Tower. It kind of picks up right where Drawing of the Three left off. And just like Drawing of the Three, it does not let up. It's a wild ride all the way through. Really cool villain. Really cool world building. Just crazy character work. It's just wild. But I still think it is a step down from Drawing of the Three. Not a major one by any means. Just if I had to pick, I like one more than the other. Still really, really love this book. This is going to go just below Misery, but better than Finders Keepers. And then my last book, remember, we're not going to rank You Like It Darker again, because that would be silly, is Skeleton Crew. This is a short story collection with some absolute bangers and some but the bangers are banging. The Jaunt is in this book. The Jaunt is my favorite Stephen King story right now. It's terrifying. It's seriously terrifying. If you want to read a good Stephen King short story, read The Jaunt. But it's also got, oh man, it's been a minute since I finished. I can't remember all the names. There's the one with, I'm not going to say, I want to say what it's about, but I don't want to spoil anything. So just a good collection. I think this is considered one of his better collections of short stories, and I think I would agree. It's certainly long, and there are some that are like, they're kind of fine, all the way up to like masterpieces like The Jaunt. So this is, I don't like it as much as You Like It Darker, but I still really like it. I think we're going to plop it right here. All right, and then before I run, let's just make sure I'm happy with all of these. So this would mean The Shining is my favorite Stephen King book, and I think that on any day, I think you could, like if I put this here, I think this does belong in S, but right now, any of these three could kind of switch any other day. I think what's stronger, so here, my argument for Wizard and Glass being the top of the top is that it made me feel things that these other books didn't. The emotions that Wizard and Glass made me feel, I didn't get that in The Shining or Revival or Pet. Actually, I did get in Revival, and I got some in The Shining. Whatever, I got in all of it, but like they're different types of emotions. Like, Wizard and Glass is just it's so emotional. Where The Shining is like it's emotional in a way that it's scary, and frustrating dealing with Jack as an abusive alcoholic, and it's just you hate him, but it's still making me feel something. So, I think I'm going to put Wizard and Glass at the top. And, yeah, I think the rest of this is good. So Wizard and Glass, then The Shining, then Revival, then Pet Sematary. Yeah. Let's look at the A's. I do think Drawing of the Three is top of the A. Just misses S. Could be an S, honestly, other than I just don't want to fill up the S. Misery, very good. I like it more than The Wastelands. Finders Keepers. Cujo, I like more than The Shining. This is irking me. I feel like it needs to be higher, but like my experience with the rest of these books is just better. Yeah, I'm leaving it. You Like It Darker, yep, I think is an A. And then Wolves of the Kala, Skeleton Crew, The Outsider. This feels good, guys. I think I'm happy with this. I could see the Gunslinger bumping up here. But I'll leave it down here for now, so we have a nice little even, a little bit more even. So yeah, that is the 24 books of Stephen King that I have read. Let me know what you think. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one. All right. Goodbye.